So last week we completed the description about Atma, if I'm not mistaken. Yes. The nature of the self, the discussion on the nature of the self is what we completed from 213 onwards. Or we had completed that before. Yeah, we were like halfway through there. And so it started off with a question by the disciple saying that you have asked us to negate the 5 koshas, but when I negate the 5 koshas, there remains nothing. And the Guru says, yes, your question is correct, but who is the one that is saying that there is nothing? That is what you need to inquire into. So then that he goes on to explain, it is the Sakshi. I told you when the 3 states are valid, then this Atma becomes a Sakshi. It's witnessing the 3 states. But when the 3 states get negated or transcended, then Atma is no longer a witness. And so it is said to be the self-witness, and it has to itself realize that it is Brahman. Okay, and then in 217 he goes on to explain the 3 states. In the 3 states, how this Atma is very, very clear. Every time we actually say, you know, I did this, I did that, I saw this, it's actually we have to understand there that whoever this I is the Jiva, and that I actually, the capital I am a witness of what I'm seeing. That is how it has to be understood. That split has to be there, very, very subtle split in the mind. So I am speaking, and at the same time, I know that I'm speaking. And the one that knows is the real me, not the one that is speaking, because the one that is speaking or doing anything is the jiva or the ego. And he gave an example of the reflection in the jar, ghata, pot. And whoever thinks that the reflection is the sun, then is definitely foolish. But we are doing the same thing. There is the reflection of consciousness in our mental pool, and we go on considering ourselves to be that. Okay, and so to the wise realize, and so the wise realize that whoever was doing anything, enjoying, seeing, tasting, perceiving is the reflection, and Brahman, I am separate from that reflection. And then this is how he gives us the example, and he says, if you leave aside the jar and the water, then what remains is only the sun. That way, leave aside the jar of the body and the water of the mind. So the mind is compared, water is mind and jar is body. If you leave aside means transcend. There is nothing to physically destroy the body or mind. It cannot be done. And even if it is done, that's it. Nothing. It's just a continuation into another body. So what needs to be done is they need to be falsified. And that is when this knowledge of oneness will arise. And then he says, by means of this, wise men, the only way to attain liberation is to know the oneness. There is no other way. Okay. No more does, and then the promise that the person doesn't come back. We have seen that in Bhagavad Gita many, many times. Bhagavan says that you come to me because I'm a point of no return. Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. So this is from Taittiriya Upanishad. I told you it's described as existence, consciousness, and Anantam, infinity. There is happiness only in infinity. In division, there will always be sorrow. There will be fear. You know, when I consider somebody other than me, then I have a reason to fear from that object, person, whatever. But if I consider everything to be a reflection of my own self, there cannot be any fear. And then we also saw all manifestation, how it is absolute, that the world is never, it's only Brahman which is there, though I consider myself as different from the universe, and then who created this universe. So the creator and the creation are one and the same. And the example given is just like the clay is not different from the pot. The pot in a sense is only the clay, the material. And wherever we touch the pot, we are touching clay, but we say it is the pot. And therefore, I told you the three realities are always there. The clay is the absolute reality. Brahman is the absolute reality. The transactional reality is the pot, which is this jiva transacting in this world. And then the illusory reality is, if I say it is a milk pot or a water pot, that's an illusory reality there. But in our case, it is the dream, which is the illusory reality. It's very easy for us to understand illusory reality and transactional reality because we do wake up from the dream, and we all know that the dream is an illusion after we wake up. So that is extremely easy for us to understand. But what becomes difficult to understand is that that Vedanta says that this waking world also is a dream from which we are supposed to be waking up, so from which we should be waking up. But it's very, very difficult because we have established ourselves in this dream, considered this dream as real for many births. It is not just this birth. For many, many births, we have considered the body to be real and the universe to be real. And to get out of that will definitely take time. But practice is possible. It is not impossible. And when people feel that they forget, the reason for that is there is not enough practice. See, if you put a couple of teaspoons of sugar in tea and then just drink that tea right away, then that tea is still going to be not as sweet because the sugar has not been stirred and not been dissolved in that tea. So this knowledge has to be stirred in the mind. Mananam is required. And this mananam can only happen in a sattvic mind. So what happens is when the mind is extremely rajasic, it is very outgoing. Even if the knowledge goes in there, two things can happen in a rajasic mind. One is that the knowledge is misunderstood. So that's a very dangerous situation. It's better not to understand anything than to misunderstand. Or if the knowledge goes in there, it doesn't stay because the mind is very unsteady. It's fickle. That's what Arjun says in chapter 6 also. It says this is extremely fickle. So that vairagya and abhyasa is practice, and practice will not happen unless this vairagya, because if I keep on thinking that this world is real and I keep on running after the world, how will dispassion come? So that mind, pulling back the mind from extroverted activities, that practice is required. It is very essential. And therefore the control of the senses. That's all we heard in Avadut Gita is dispassion. that was it. The whole thing in Bhagavad Gita summarized as Sukha Dukkha Samay Krutva. Make them equal. Then you'll be dispassionate towards both Sukha and this thing. No spraha. No longing for sukha, no running away from dukkha. That is what is required. But unless that happens, and practice is required for that. It just you hear once and then suddenly next day you'll become like that. It is impossible. Okay. So the essence of the mud pot just being mud, same way the essence of us and the essence of this entire world is only the substratum, the Brahman. So that was the line of thinking in all these verses which we saw. And then he gives the reasons. If the world were to be real, then scriptures are negated. God will become a liar, it is not possible. So, and then if it was really real, that's why I use the word really real, means not changing in the 3 periods of time. What happens to the world in deep sleep? Where is the world in deep sleep? Where is my worries? Where are my joys? Where are my sorrows? Where are my jealousies? Where are my sentiments? Where are they in deep sleep? They're nowhere to be seen. And that's why also, that is also one of the reasons that was given. And therefore, he concludes in 235 that the world does not exist independent of the supreme reality, because what is experienced in the 3 states of waking, dream, and deep sleep is only the I, the capital I, not the ego. That's why I don't know who I am in deep sleep. Ego is the one that is telling me that I am Jaya. But when I am in deep sleep, do I know that I'm Jaya, or I am whatever, a mother or employer, employee, businessman, rich, poor? Do I know that? I don't. I don't. In deep sleep, I don't. But I do exist in deep sleep, because of which I have memory. And that's why we know that Brahman is there in the three states, periods of time, waking, dream, and deep sleep, but the ego is not there. The jiva is not there. So that's where we know that the jiva cannot be really real. All right. So that's where we were. And it is an error of judgment. It is delusion, because of which this is all happening. Now, in the next 37, 38, 39, 4 verses, Brahman's nature, Bhagwan describes. So all of these words we have heard before, nothing new. Ata param brahma sadvitiyam vishuddha vijnana ghanam niranjanam prashantamadhyanta vihinamakriyam nirantaranandarasaswarupam nirastamaya krita sarva bhedam nityam sukham nishkalam aprameyam arupa Arupavyaktam anakhyam avyayam jyoti swayam kinchididam chakasti. Therefore, whatever is manifested is the Supreme Brahman itself, real, non-dual, extremely pure, the essence of knowledge absolute, taintless, supremely peaceful, without beginning or end, beyond all activity, always of the nature of bliss absolute, transcending all diversities created by Maya, eternal, the essence of joy, indivisible, immeasurable, formless, unmanifest, nameless, immutable, and self-effulgent. None of these words we have not heard before. So I'm going to quickly go. Ataha is therefore. So it is a conclusion, because in the previous section, he explained how this whole universe is nothing but the essence, and the essence is Brahman. Therefore, Param Brahma, it is the supreme, which can never be negated, from which there is no return. Brahma Sat Advitiyam, Sat, of the nature of existence. We have heard this word many times. Sat, but that which is really real, that which does not change in the 3 periods of time. Advitiyam, one without a second. There is nothing other than that. Vishuddha, because there is nothing other than that, it is Vishuddha. Visheshena Shuddha, it's extremely pure, because impurity comes when something else comes, on a cloth. Say there is a white cloth or whatever. If some ink stain falls or something falls on it, so something else comes and then there is a stain. But there is nothing else to stain Brahman. So that's why it is Vishuddham. It's extremely pure. Vijnana Ghanam, I told you, it's a homogeneous mass of happiness, of bliss. Means there is absolutely no division, no diversion, nothing within and without. Niranjanam, taintless. Nira, Anjanam, taintless. How can there be any taint? There is nothing else to taint it. Prashantam, Prakarshena Shantam. I've explained this word. That which is beyond Shanti and Ashanti. I think in Abdul Gita also, Swamiji said, if you have Shanti, that means it's only absence of Ashanti. If you're Ashanta, then it's absence of Shanti. So this Prashanti, which represents Brahman, is not an absence of anything. It is only a presence of bliss. That's it. So it's beyond Shanti and Ashanti. It's beyond joy and sorrow. Adyanta Vihinam, without Adi and Anta. There's no beginning, there is no end. It's beginningless, it's birthless, and it's deathless. Whatever is born in time will die in time. But this is not born in time. Time is born out of Brahman. So because it is not born in time, it is timeless. It is eternal. It cannot have any this thing. Akriyam, it is the non-doer. This also I've explained many, many times. Only in the presence of Brahman do things happen. Without Brahman, things wouldn't happen, but Brahman does not do anything. Just like the sun only shines the light on the world, and then people act. In Atma Bodh, Bhagavan gives this example. He says, just the presence of the sun, the presence of the king, all the workers start working, or there also the sun. He says, because previously they were not these artificial lights. He said, when the sun comes up, people start working, but that doesn't mean that the sun is doing any work. So the sun is akriya. So Brahman is akriya like that. Its nature is consciousness. It will lend its consciousness to the body, mind, intellect, because of which the body, mind, and intellect work. They become kriyavan. They become the doers. And the doing is happening because of the gunas. Nirantar. Nirantar, absolutely no break. Ananda rasa swarupam. So it's the nature is happiness. See, our basic nature is happiness. This also I've explained before, because of which no matter how much sorrow we have, we ultimately, maybe after 1 month, 2 months, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, we will come back to that position of happiness. But when we are happy, we never, something external happens, and because we identify with that, we go into sorrow. But on our own, we will not go into sorrow. But from sorrow, you just stay quiet. Something sorrowful is happening, you just stay quiet. You will automatically, the mind will gear towards happiness, because that is the nature of the mind. That is our nature. Our nature is ananda. That's why. Transcending all the nirasta maya krita sarva bhedam. So maya krita, this word is very important. This is a play of maya, of ignorance, that I see the differences. I see differences between people, animals, plants, all differences I see. I see only differences, actually. Honestly speaking, you look out the window, even one tree is different than the other tree, everything. But if I just shift my attention to the substratum, then I will know that both those trees are existing. So shift your attention to the existence. The dog is existing and the cat is also existing. The human is existing and the car also is existing. The stone is also existing. So shift attention to existence. Only then you can see the oneness. Otherwise, you can't. So, and this difference is created by Maya. So it is an illusion. Maya is sama iti maya, that which is not there. It's an illusion. When we see a magician show, it's really, there is nothing there. He's just showing you something which is not there. So that's illusion. Nityam, always eternal. Sukham, happiness. It's always happy. Nishkala aprameyam. Nishkala, no kalas, no. It doesn't, the moon, it seems like it waxes and wanes, but there is no decrease in there. There is no decrease, there is no increase. That's why the man of realization is compared to an ocean. I told you, 5-10 rivers, which are over flooded, enter the ocean doesn't get flooded. Or all those 10 rivers are, say, dried up, the ocean doesn't go down. It will not go down. It will remain the same. So that's what this is, nishkalam. There's no kalas. There's no change in there. Aprameyam, unmanifest, not known by the senses. Prameyam is that which is known by the senses, and this is not known by the senses. That's why arupam, formless. Because Brahman is formless, it can support all the forms. Like we have the white screen only. See, you can have a 70 millimeter screen, and this planetarium has what they project it onto the roof and whatnot. But everything is white. Have you ever seen a colored screen, like a red screen in a movie theater, or a green one? Never. It can't be. Because then red, if it is red, it will not support the red color. So it has to be colorless to support all the colors. That way, Brahman has to be formless to support all the forms. If it was of one particular shape, that means we are setting boundaries. It will lose its position as infinity. And that's why arupa, formless. Avyakta, anakyam, nameless. Avyakta is again, cannot be expressed, cannot be perceived. Anakya, nameless, because name is only given to a form. First, the form comes, and then comes a name. So if you see a form of a chair, then you say it's a chair. No, it's not a chair, it's a stool. No, it's a table. So if it is formless, automatically it becomes nameless. If there is no form, there cannot be a name. Avyayam, we have heard this word also, imperishable. Jyotihi Swayam, self-luminous. I've given you the example of electricity. Electricity is independent on its own. That way, like the sun is, of course, later we know that the light of the sun, but sun, you don't need any other instrument to see the sun, like a torch or anything. Kinchita, immutable and self-effulgent, this immeasurable, formless, unmanifest. Okay, so all these words we have heard, and then Gurudev also has given this thing, so you can read that as well. Nyatruneya jnana shunyam anantam nirvikalpakam kevala khanda chinmatram param tattvam vidurbudhaha. Sages realize the supreme truth in which there are no distinctions, such as the knower, the knowledge, and the known, which is infinite, transcendental, and which is of the essence of knowledge absolute. This triad, we have talked about the Triputi or the triad, is always valid and present in the material world. In ignorance, this triad exists in ignorance. So when I am ignorant of my own self and I consider this world to be real, then there is an I, subject, the knower, and then there is an object, which is the known, and then there is an experience between the subject and the object, which is called as knowing. So this triad is extremely valid. And in the transactional world, the triad is very important as well. But then it is a transactional world. It is not the absolute reality. So the transactional world is a dream. So when this transactional world is transcended and you go to the absolute reality, the triad merges. It is Advitiyam. Remember that Brahman is Advitiyam. There is one without a second. Here there are three things happening. There is the I, the subject, the object, and the experience between the subject and the object. So three things are actually there. There cannot be, because there is not even a second thing in Brahman. So how can there be a third thing then? So that's why this sages, that's what they realize, that there is no triad, and it's infinite, transcendental, and which is the essence of knowledge absolute. Once again, this is the knowledge which tells me that I don't know chemistry. See, there is in the material world, there is two things. I know chemistry, I don't know chemistry. Okay, so that we know very well. I know one thing, I don't know another thing. But what is it that is telling me that I don't know? What is it that is telling me that I know? That is called as knowledge absolute. Therefore, that K is a K capital. So this knowledge absolute is the absolute knowledge, which is telling me what I know, which is also telling me what I don't know. Similar to the example, let me remind you, when I enter a absolutely pitch dark room, I know that I am in where I cannot see I cannot even see, if I put my hand in front of my face, I cannot see that. It's that dark. But I know that I'm standing there. I'm aware that I'm standing, as well as that awareness which is within me is illumining the darkness outside. So the darkness outside is getting illumined by the presence of the pure consciousness. That is what is knowledge absolute, which is telling me that I am there, positive, and which is telling me that there is darkness outside. So that is what is knowledge absolute. Okay. And then experience of this great truth is God realization. That is what you have to recognize, that there is no triad. Ahe manupadeyam manovachamagocharam aprameyamanadyantam brahmapurnamaham. That which can neither be thrown away nor taken up. This is a very important point. Heya and upadeya. So these are the two words. That which lies beyond the limits of mind and speech, which is immeasurable, which is without beginning and end, which is whole and one's own self, which is of outshining glory, that is the self. So here is to take on something. So this is a here. So I told you, when you attach the prefix a, it becomes opposite. So here. And upadeya is that which can be given up. Okay. So the word is anupadeya. So when you add this an over there, it becomes the opposite of upadeya. So aheya and anupadeya, these are opposites of heya and upadeya. Heya is to take on, upadeya is to give up. Now, in life, in our material world, there are many things that I can take on. I can take on a job. I can, voluntary work I can take on. I can take on, and then when I get bored, I can leave it also. We see that all the time. We see people attending classes and then they drop them also. So what can be taken on and dropped is not Brahman. Brahman is that which cannot be taken on also and which cannot be given also. Now look at the body, okay? What happens is we are just born with the body, but actually what the jiva has done is taken on the body, right? We have seen this. Now we'll be seeing it in chapter 15 also. Bhagavan will explain the journey of the jiva. So the jiva leaves one body and it takes on another body. All right. So because this body has been taken on, it can be given up. And that's what the jiva does. It gives up the body and goes away. But Brahman, this existence principle, it is not something that we have taken. We are already that. What we are, how we can take on. It's like, the dharma of a particular thing. So sugar, the dharma of sugar is sweet. It is not that there is some white powder and then it took on this sweetness. See, when I make a sweet dish, right, I boil the milk. Now I add the sugar to it. What I add to it, I can remove it also. You understand? So whatever is added can be given up. What is taken on and what is given up cannot be Brahman. That is the point. Brahman is that which cannot be taken and which cannot be given either. Aheya and anupadaya. These two are very important words. See, that's why Gurudev also, the 5 koshas can be rejected. Body is the 5 koshas. And that is what has happened. The jiva has actually taken on this body at time of birth. And at the time of death, it's going to discard. That's why the body cannot be Brahman. Okay. And then the rest is all, we have this thing, which is beyond the limits of mind and speech. You cannot understand it by the mind. You cannot know it by speech. Speech representing the organs of action. So there is no action that can be done to take this on or to give up or to understand it either. That is what Brahman is, which is immeasurable. Infinity, how do you measure infinity? Measurement can happen only when there are boundaries. Then you can measure, okay, distance between here and Calgary. You can measure. There is Vancouver on one side, there's Calgary. Okay, how much is the distance between the 2 cities? That can be measured. Means there is boundaries. There's Vancouver, Calgary, Vancouver, Toronto, whatever, If there are no boundaries, how do you measure? Which is without beginning and end. We have seen this many, many times. Na jayate na mriyate. Right? Not born, not. Which is whole and one's own self. It is my own self. How can I give that up? How can sugar ever give up its sweetness? How can fire ever give up the heat? Then it won't be called fire. Then you can't call it fire. Nobody can give you cold fire. There's no cold fire ever, anywhere. If the minute you say fire, heat is presumed. It's presumed with it. Which cannot at all be rejected. That's why. Anupadaya, it cannot be rejected. Oh, then maybe I'll take it on. No, whatever you take on can be rejected. You have taken on the body. You have taken on a role. You took on the responsibility of a house. You took on the responsibility of a husband, family, children. All those can be given up, but not Brahma. This topic ends here. Are there any questions? Okay. None of these words we have not heard before. Yeah.
I just wanted to clear up the 239 verse when you said, I think I missed it when you said something about the triad. So can you please explain that again?
The triad,
Mm-hmm.
Nyatru Neya Jnanam.
Yeah.
In the transactional world, there always is a triad is valid. Right now, the triad is happening. I am speaking, you're listening, and that experience of me speaking and you listening is going on. That is a triad, which is extremely valid in the transactional world, very necessary also. Right? But when you transcend this body, mind, intellect, you are reaching Brahman, which is Advitiyam. There is nothing else. Now, you know, when I'm alone at home, like even though in my mind things go on, and even if I'm alone, if I turn the TV on, then there is an experience between me and the TV. So this can happen. But in Brahman, there is nothing else. So there cannot be a triad, because the knower itself is the known. See, in the transactional world, the knower and the known are different. Are they not? There is this computer screen in front of me, which is the object, and I'm sitting here. So there is me, and then there is the computer. So what is to be known in case of Brahman? Brahman only has to know Brahman, like ego only has to know ego, right? So there is only one thing. Therefore, the triad cannot exist. That is why the triad merges. Where the triad merges, you have reached Brahman. You have realized Brahman. Okay, that's fine. Okay. Now, the explanation of that thou art, I have told you this also before, or maybe some of you haven't heard. There are 4 Mahavakyas in the 4 Vedas, one in each Veda. Pradyanam Brahma, Tattvamasi, Ayam Atma Brahma, and Aham Brahmasmi. All 4 are short statements, so they are important. They're called Mahavakya, great statements, not because of their length, but because of their depth. The depth in those words is immense, and the essence of all 4 Mahavakyas, great statements, is one and the same. That the Jiva and Brahma are one and the same. That is it. There is absolutely no difference. But that thou art belongs to Chandogya Upanishad, and generally this is what is taken up for analysis, very commonly taken up for analysis. Though once you analyze this, if you just go into Ayam Atma Brahma or Aham Brahmasmi or Pradnyanam Brahma, they all will mean the same thing. They will be clearly understood. So this that thou art, it was analyzed even in Tattva Bodh, and here also Bhagwan is now analyzing it. Okay, so before we go into the explanation here, see, for any statement, there is a direct meaning and then there is an implied meaning. That's very important. This is to be known. Okay, so some statements are just basically straightforward. I'm thirsty. Okay, fine. I want some water to drink. Those are straightforward. In the Shastra, because there are the 6 different pramanas, means of knowledge, spiritual knowledge, the Jiva Brahma Aikya has to be gotten through Shabda Praman. I think some of you are new, so I'm not sure whether they would. There are 6 methods of gaining knowledge. There is direct perception, there is inference, there is presumption, there is comparison, there is absence, and there is Shabda Pramana, okay, words. Words, Shabda Pramana, Pramana means of knowledge, Shabda words. Words are the only means of knowledge to gain this spiritual knowledge. What is spiritual knowledge here? Oneness between Jiva and Brahma. There is no other spiritual knowledge that we have to gain. We only have to gain this. Okay, now, words are the means, but are there any words that we can read? No, we can't. Because this topic is something which the senses cannot reach, cannot understand, the mind cannot understand. So it cannot be anything which any human being has written. Why? Because whatever human being will write, whatever is through his senses, he has understood it and he has written. But this Brahman is not to be understood, cannot be understood through the senses. So we need something which is not written by human beings. We need something which is apaurushaya. And so the Shabda Praman only refers to Vedas, the 4 Vedas. There is, of course, we have the Upanishad is Vedas, but we have the Prakaran Granthas. So we have Atma, we have Vivekachudamani. This is also words. But please understand that all these words are from the Vedas. There is nothing that Bhagavan Shankaracharya has said which is not in the Veda, in the Upanishads or in Bhagavad Gita. Okay, so these realized masters have taken the essence from there, made it simpler for us to understand, because we to go and read the Upanishad also directly, it is not possible. It will not be understood correctly. So they have simplified it, but the main source of knowledge is the Vedas. So when we say Shabda Pramana is only Vedas actually. There is no other Shabda Pramana. Now, the Shabda Praman, the problem is that these words have multiple meanings. That is where the problem comes in Shabda Praman. So if I, for an example, if I say table, you can wonder, does she mean a writing table or does she mean a mathematical table? That problem comes. Some words will have simple meaning. Okay, water. Okay, water is water. But if I say table, then what is she referring to? So you have to take into context what the topic was. If I was talking on mathematics, then of course when I say table, I'm referring to a mathematical table. But if I'm, talking about having people over for dinner or lunch or something, then maybe it's a dining table. Maybe it's a writing table. So that is the problem with words. That words have multiple meanings. And because they have multiple meanings, we need a guru to tell us what this word is indicating. Most of you have not probably studied Kathopanishad. In Kathopanishad, this word comes Purusha or Atma, sorry. Atma word in one mantra, same Upanishad, one mantra, Atma refers to the body. Next mantra, it refers to the mind. Next mantra, it refers to the supreme conscious. It refers to Jiva, and then it finally refers. So how do we know? Like how does the verse make sense? That's why we have the Bhashya. Bhagavan Shankaracharya's Bhashya, where he explains why he takes the meaning of Atma as body in this particular mantra. Why is he taking? Because that is the job of the Bhashyakar. The one who writes a commentary on the Upanishads has to explain every word, and he has to explain why he is taking this meaning. But because the other person is saying, "Arey, but Atma means mind, intellect. So why are you saying it is body?" So he has to explain with the context in the other words in the mantras. Okay, so that is where these two meanings come in, direct and implied. And the example that Shastra gives us is, if I say red runs, now you're going to think, what? Red is a color and this color is running, right? But if I tell you, or if you know that I have a horse whose name is Red, then it will make sense to you. Oh, she has a horse named Red, and that Red is running in the race, and that's what she means. The horse is going to be running. Not the color red is going to be running. Or my house is on the Ganges. These are examples that Shastra has given. My house is on the Ganges. Oh, physically you're living on top of the water? You live in a houseboat? No. Then to understand that statement correctly, you have to add a word. My house is on the banks of the Ganges. It is on the banks of the Ganges. So that bank has to be added there. The horse has to be added there. So sometimes a word has to be added. Sometimes something has to be dropped from there. So there is one where you add, there is one where you drop the meaning. You drop that. So in case of my house is on the Ganges, you have to drop the meaning of the word Ganges as a river. Because if you take Ganges as a river, then you're telling me that you are floating on, your house is floating on the water there. Is your house is on the Ganges, so on the river Ganges. No, 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 no. So you drop the meaning as river and take up the meaning of the bank of the Ganges. So one, you take on a meaning, one, you give up the meaning, and in one, you have to do both. And Tattvamasi is one of those verses where Tattvamasi means that thou art. Okay, that referring to Ishvara or God, actually referring to Ishvara, yeah, or God. Thou, Tat, Tvam referring to you, and Asi is the oneness. So when you take the direct meaning of these three words, you are that God. Huh? How can I be? How can I be? I am limited. I am sorrowful all the time. I heard God is all happy all the time. God is immeasurable. God is infinite. I am finite. How can that be? So that is when the direct, anytime you read a line or a verse or a mantra from the Vedas, you must try to take the direct meaning. Direct meaning is direct meaning. So that you must take. But if it does not make sense, you cannot say that the Shruti is wrong. That is where this comes in. I told you, Shruti can never, Bhagavan himself said, if you say that this world is real, you have negated Shruti, and Shruti can never be negated. So when I think that, oh, how can I be Ishvara? There's something wrong with Shruti, you know, this can't be possible. Then I have to correct my understanding. I cannot correct the Vedas. There's nothing to be corrected. They are the words of the gods. They are the breath of the gods. So there's nothing wrong with the Vedas. Okay, that's why this implied meaning now comes into play. And let us see how this is explained. So let's see how Bhagavan explains it. But even in Tattva Bodh, you can read this portion because the same line is taken up for analysis over there. Tattvam padabhya Tattvam padabhya manibhidhiyamanaha brahmatmano shodhitayor yaditham shrutyatayosthatvamasiti samyaka ekattvameva pratipadyate muhuhu aikyam tayor lakshitayor navachayoho nigadyate nyonya viruddha dharminoho Khadyota bhavan voriva raja bhrutyayoho kupamburasho paramanu mervoho. If Shruti in her maxim, that thou art, repeatedly establishes the identity of Brahman and Jiva, indicated by the term that, tat, and thou, tvam, respectively. So that is Brahman and tvam is Jiva. Then, stripping these terms of their relative associations, their implied but not literal meanings are to be inculcated. Here now he's telling us the secret of how to understand this statement that thou art. Okay? For they are of contradictory attributes, like the sun and the glowworm, the king and the servant, the ocean and the well, Mount Meru and the atom. So he's in 242, he has given these 4 examples. So let us see these examples. I told you already, how can I be God? Because we are completely opposite. I am limited, I am finite, I am alpadnya, my knowledge is extremely limited. He has limitless knowledge. He knows the past, present, and future of everybody. I don't even know my own past. I don't even know what is going to happen tomorrow to me. How can they be one? And that is the direct meaning. But if Shruti is saying Asi, she is saying Asi, so I have to take the implied meaning. So here he gives examples, sun and the glowworm. Like if you compare the sun to the glowworm, like where is the sun and where is the glowworm? What needs to be understood, but let's take the example. The king and the servant. Okay, so the king is the master of the kingdom and the servant is working for him. King is so rich, living in a fancy palace. The servant is living in a hut. How that king and servant can be one? The ocean and the well. Ocean, oh my God, so infinite, so deep, and this well is only this much, and then just so much deep. Mount Meru and the atom is very, very small. Mount Meru is considered comparing Himalayas, Everest to some, little atom, little small little pebble or small little hillock in the village. How can that be possible? So the sun and the glowworm, literal meaning they are not one, but if you go a little bit deeper, the sun also has light and the glowworm also has light. So the light and the light are one. The light in the sun and the light of the glowworm, they're one and the same. But if you take the direct meaning of sun and glowworm, then no, they cannot be one. But when you go to the substratum of both of them, they both emit light. Light is the same. King and the servant. You strip the king of his palace and his kingdom, and you strip the servant of his hut. What remains is a man and a man. They are one. The man and man are one. But the minute the king wears his clothes and his crown and he sits on the throne, and then he is the king and he is the servant. But you strip him of his title, king. Take it off. Take it off. Take off his hut. Take off his palace. Take off his kingdom. What remains? There is a man and there is a man. Then what is the difference between man and man? No difference. Ocean and the well. Okay, you forget the vastness of the ocean. Ocean, there is water. Well, there is water. Water only. Water is one. Go to the substratum. And Mount Meru and atom. Huge mountain, small, but that is also made out of dust. This is also made out of dust. So these examples he's given. So that's why what he's saying is that literal meaning Brahman, thou literal meaning you. If you take the literal meaning of you and Brahman, no way there can be any similarity. So you need to strip both of them of something. What is it? He will himself tell. So this is that's why I told you, like red runs, you have to add something. Okay, house on the Ganges, you have to drop Ganges and you have to add bank to it. Bank of the Ganges. Or sun and glowworm. Leave the form, take the light. Leave the form of ocean, form of well, take the water. Leave the palace, leave the hut, both are men. They're same. That way, this line, Tattvamasi, is to be understood. Okay? Now, Tayor virodho yamupadhikalpitaha navastava kaschidupadireshaha ishasya maya mahadadikaranam jivasya karyam shunu panchakosham. The difference between them is only created by superimposition and is not real. The conditioning in the case of Ishvara is Maya or Mahat, etc. And listen, the conditionings in the case of the Jiva are the 5 sheaths. So let us understand this. There is, we have talked about Ishvara. Who is Ishvara? Who is Ishvara? Brahman plus Maya. We have talked about this in Bhagavad Gita also. Who creates this world? We cannot say Brahman created the world. Why? Because Brahman is Akriyam, the non-doer. So Brahman plus Maya created the world. And when Brahman is associated with Maya, then he's called as Ishvara. So that here is referring to Ishvara. Okay. And then this Brahman, when he is associated with avidya, there is Maya and there is avidya. Maya is at the level of the totality. Okay. So this total Maya along with Brahman becomes Ishvara, comes to be known as Ishvara, and that Ishvara creates this world where there are these individual jivas, us, who have this covering, superimposition of avidya as the panchakoshas, this body, mind, intellect, the panchakoshas which we studied, Annamaya, Pranamaya, Manomaya, don't forget panchakoshas. We studied in detail. Bhagavan already told us that. So the Ishvara is pure consciousness plus Maya. Jiva is pure consciousness plus avidya. What you need to do is drop Maya, drop avidya. What remains is pure consciousness. And there is the oneness. Like the form of the sun is dropped, the form of the glowworm is dropped, the light is kept. The palace of the king is dropped, the hut of the servant is dropped. What remains is man. The vastness of the ocean is dropped, the limited finite well, the boundaries are dropped. What remains is water. And then the whole mountain, the form of the mountain is dropped, and then the small atom form is dropped. What remains is dirt, mud, same. So in that thou art, that is Ishvara. Ishvara is pure consciousness plus Maya. What is the difference between Maya and Avidya? See, Ishvara has Maya under his control. Okay? And we'll be talking about this point on Monday as well. Ishvara has Maya under his control. So Maya cannot delude Ishvara. So what happens is, even though the superimposition of Maya is there, Ishvara always knows that I am Brahman. Ishvara always knows that I am Brahman. But this creation has to happen because the vasanas of the jivas have fructified. This creation has to happen. So I'm going to use this Maya to create. But I know who I am. I know who I am. Essentially, I am this thing. Jiva is under the control of Maya. Therefore, Maya is called as avidya. So Jiva being under the control of avidya, under the control of the gunas. We have talked about the 3 gunas also a lot of times. I mean, chapter 14. So because the Jiva is under the control of these 3 gunas, it has this delusion that I'm the one that is doing everything. It forgets its essential nature. Its essential nature is Brahman, but it forgets because of the superimposition. So to understand that thou art, you have to drop the superimposition. You have to drop the superimposition of at the individual level and also at the totality level. Because if you drop only one superimposition and you leave that, even then it doesn't make sense. So both have to be dropped. Simple equation I'm telling you. Ishvara equals mathematical equation. Ishvara equals pure consciousness plus Maya. Jiva equals pure consciousness plus avidya. You drop Maya, you drop avidya. Ishvara equals pure consciousness, Jiva equals pure consciousness. Pure consciousness, one. There is no difference. That is what Tattvamasi is. Any questions? Gurudev has given this microcosm and macrocosm. You can go through that. The representation of Jiva is at the individual level. Macrocosm, samashti is the totality level. Ishvara is at the level of totality. Jiva is at the level of this thing. The common example that I have given, which probably might resonate with you, those of you who are working, all of the companies now have teams, and there is a team leader, right? So consider the team leader as Ishvara. Okay, so the team leader in a team, in your workplace, say he has 5 members under him, 5 team members. The 5 are the jivas. Okay, the team leader knows the performance level of the jivas, of the 5 team members. He knows their paychecks. He knows what raise they are going to get. He knows if somebody is sick and is wanting to be going on sick leave. He knows if somebody who is going on leave, because all of them are reporting to him. So he knows everything about the 5 team members. Ishvara is like that team leader of the entire universe. Ishvara is that powerful. Why? Because it's pure consciousness. Sarva Shaktiman. That's why he's called as Sarva Shaktiman and Sarvadnya. Sarvadnya means he knows the past, present, and future of all the jivas. And when I say jivas, it includes humans, animals, plants, reptiles, birds, everything. He knows every little, even in a minuscule ant or a I don't know, glowworm. There's a jiva in that glowworm also. And Ishvara knows the past, present, and future of that glowworm. He also knows the past, present, and future of the richest man in the world or the strongest man in the world or whoever. He's the team leader. That is the totality. Team leader is the totality. The members are individuality. Now, every member will not know, the other person will not, unless they're close friends, that's a different matter. But officially, the other person is going to tell this person, you know, I'm sick, I've got some surgery coming. He's going to tell the team leader that, you know what, I'm going to be going on sick leave, so you better make arrangements for replacing me or whatever. You get this point? That is how this concept of Ishvara and Jiva is to be understood. Okay. So we'll stop here. We'll go next time from 2:44 onwards. It's a beautiful analysis, and this should be understood correctly. So if there are any questions or doubts or whatever, do ask. Okay. Because the Mahavakyas should be understood correctly. They are the final teaching, and the essence of the entire Vedas is only Jiva Brahma Aikya. That is the essence. It is not Karma Kanda. It is not to do karma. It is not to get Krama Mukti. It is only to get Jivan Mukti. That is it. There is no other essence for the Vedas. Okay.